Okay, we're back. We're live. It's Tuesday. It's 2 o'clock block. Okay, we're here in our studio in Pioneer Plaza, and all is well in the world. Almost all. Okay, and this is ThinkTech Hawaii, and we're talking about community matters today. We're going to talk about balancing ethics and beliefs, especially on the stage, with Joshua Ayu, who's an HPU student. He's going for 2 degrees, a BA and a BS. And one of those degrees has put him on the stage as a director of a play, which is opening what, soon?
Yes, the first weekend of December. We run December, I believe it's the 3rd, 4th, 5th. And it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Where is it playing?
It's playing at the Hawaii Aloha campus at the Paul and HPU Theatre.
Okay.
So it should be great.
Yeah, we should be asking you about that again, too, so that we can make an impression on people. And speaking of impressions, who's the woman to your left?
Who's the woman?
The woman to his
It looks like Sachi Slomov, our floor manager here at ThinkTech.
Yeah, we're all friends.
Yeah, so Sachi is into the performing arts, and she comes and joins us and asks the hard questions.
Gotcha. So I should keep my direction face this way,
Yeah,
and then maybe cheat out a couple of times
It's
going
good
that way.
for you, yeah.
Gotcha.
So how did you get into this? I mean, what are you studying actually, in the BA and the BS that would lead you to be a director in a stage play?
So I actually started performing arts as a child. My father comes from a line of performing arts majors, and it kind of always encouraged me to kind of keep going and keep questioning and make a lifestyle out of the performing arts. Arts, in my opinion, is so vital to today's society because it reminds us of our humanity. I think Charlie Chaplin once made a point in his speech in The Great Dictator that has a full speech at the end of talk.
Was that a talkie?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was. By then, yes, I believe it was one of the first of them. In which case, but he goes into talking about how as society moves forward, we become more and more like machines. And in that sense, my father always encouraged me to keep your humanity, keep your arts, and really apply it. So in that sense, as I grew older and started kind of began looking into college, I needed to balance out arts and the economic standpoint, the business side of it. So I decided to get a BS in business, general business practices, and a BA in theater, in hopes of making show business work. Because if you don't, then you just become a starving artist, and as we have enough of those in the world. So.
So many questions flow out of what you said. Here on ThinkTech, you talk for a minute, and there are 27 questions.
Bursting
Watch
from
what
the
Sachi
seams.
does it. Question is, can you relate what you just said to the title of the show, which is Balancing Ethics and Beliefs?
Absolutely. Our show, next fall in particular, deals with this balance of ethics and beliefs. The show is set around a gay relationship in New York City in 2010. And however, one of our partners gets into an accident. And is
Automobile accident.
Yes, an automobile accident, and ends up in the ICU unit at the hospital. How the sad part is that he's not out to his family. So they come from Tallahassee, Florida, to New York City, and they arrive in the waiting room, and there are all his friends and his boyfriend's in town, and so now there's this immediate conflict of who is everyone, why are we here, what's going on? And the show itself, I think, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, is set in a Jewish hospital because one of our main characters is a devout Christian. And so he has to constantly balance out, has to balance out how he identifies sexually as well as religiously.
So explain to me, though, what does that all mean for the title of Balancing Ethics and Beliefs?
Okay, balancing ethics, beliefs. So as we look at the show, ethically, the goal of the show is to, I'll put it in a metaphor, if you will. Being part Jewish myself, everything boils down to a parable. Sorry,
You heard it here on
just a fact. But there was once an artist, and he decided to make a painting. And first he paints it all red, and looks at it and he goes, "Well, I like it. It's strong. It's intense." And he goes, "But it doesn't really convey everything that I want it to say." So he takes it and he goes, "Oh no, I have to start again." And so he paints it all blue, and he goes, "I like it. It's cool. It's loving. It's flowing." He goes, "But it doesn't really have everything that I wanted to say." So he goes, "I got to start again." And he paints it all yellow, and of course says, "I like it, but it doesn't say what I wanted to say."
How long does this show take to
It takes the
I'm
4 days.
I'm enjoying
It
this.
takes 4 days if you're asking a rabbi. But in the short version, he gets down to it, and he says he decides to start mixing colors. And he says, and so he puts the reds into place, and he puts the blues, and he puts the yellows, and then finds green and orange and purple. And then once he's done, he looks at it and he goes, "Yes, that's what I wanted." And that really boils down to the story of our show, in which case not everyone is the same. We have an atheist, we have devout Christians, the show's set in a Jewish hospital, we have somebody that's New Age, and the fact of the matter is that everyone, though, is a color. Everyone is a person. And even though we all have our divine uniqueness, if you will, we all have to work together to make a beautiful picture. If we don't, then the whole picture falls apart. You lose the innate humanity. So that to me is the balance of ethics and beliefs. Is that, while your beliefs refer to your color, your specific color, the ethic is that everyone's a color. You can't tell a green to be a yellow, because at the end of the day, then you lose the yellow. So that is my parable.
Okay. Do you have any questions so far, Sachi?
I'm sure I do, but I'm just kind of reeling back from that. That's really profound.
You-
Because it's not like telling anyone to not be anything. It's like saying hey, everything that you do believe in is valid because you believe in it,
Absolutely.
or something. And together we make this beautiful picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It kind of also boils down to concepts within Judaism. Judaism, ironically, is very special amongst other religions in the sense that it's one of the few religions that are not faith-based, it's action-based. And this is very important to our show because Judaism is built off of various laws, like any nation is. However, then you have off-branches of Christianity and Islam, which become faith-based, and everything is about, no, I have to believe for my salvation, and you push through. But when you come back and you identify to the basic laws of homosexuality and things of such nature, there begins to become some very contrasting opinions. It becomes disjointed as people become dehumanized. Due to their identification, rather than looking at it saying, you basically, in the most right-wing Orthodox Jewish opinions, somebody that identifies as gay is not going to hell. It's like a smoker. You might not agree with them smoking, but it doesn't affect their salvation. In which case, the show contrasts that against the Christian belief, where one of our main characters is constantly being torn by this idea of, am I going to heaven? Do I, and he explains in Christian belief that as long as you believe in Christ, or as long as you believe in Jesus, then you have salvation. But then how do you weigh that against the laws of the Bible? And so we really begin to piece these ideas apart. And the writer does this so wonderfully as he inserts, we have one scene where a mezuzah is on the wall. And our devout Christian, who really is torn over his homosexuality, is prying this mezuzah off the wall. And as a logically thinking person, if you study Judaism, the same law that says, you shall not have gay sex, that also states that you shall put a mezuzah on your wall. So here we have, he's so torn over his sexuality, and yet he's tearing down one of the other, a different law. He says, I don't know, I don't believe in this. What is this going to do for us? And so you begin to weigh out, how can you keep one, if not all? And
Right. Oh my God. It's like, it reminds me of just queer theory.
Yes.
You know, I minored in queer studies.
Oh.
And so I just love how it's like, it's just a very postmodern idea, right? It's like, it takes
is.
into consideration everything.
It does.
You know, and it doesn't deny anything, and just like the whole, I can go on.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
'Cause but that's the whole point of the show, is to
Right.
encourage discussion, to encourage forward thinking, while also identifying that people do have their own beliefs. There's nothing wrong with identifying as being Christian. There's nothing wrong with identifying as being Jewish. There's nothing wrong with identifying as being atheist. And I think that's one of the beautiful things of setting the story in a Jewish hospital, because Judaism as a religion does practice conversion, is one of the religions that's actually very hard to convert. They don't encourage conversion in the sense, because everyone is made, if you're Jewish, you're meant to be Jewish. If you're Mexican, you're meant to be Mexican. If you're English, you're meant to be English. Everyone can serve God in their own way and in their own time and how they practice. And that in that sense goes back to the idea of colors. If you're a yellow, you have to be a yellow. It is God made you to be a yellow. And that's where our story takes, branches off and hits the ground running.
There was a movie made about 5 years ago in New York about a gay love affair between a ballet dancer and the chief of surgery at a Manhattan hospital. And I'm trying to remember if they were both Chinese or whether just the surgeon was Chinese. But they had a relationship going on, and then this is all thrust into the Chinese community, which doesn't particularly like lesbian relationships. And the most wonderful part of this movie, which was made in New York has a million stories like that,
Absolutely.
is that the movie is in Mandarin.
Really?
Made in this country.
Wow.
It was in Mandarin.
That
I truly loved it.
that's one of those artistic choices that really hits home.
Yeah.
It's that moment where saying you have to make it applicable, and sometimes you have to make that avant-garde decision and say, no, we're going to set it in another language, because that's the reality of life. Not everything
Take a
is.
chance, do something that nobody's done.
Absolutely.
So who wrote this thing, and then we'll take a break.
The play is written by Jeffrey Knopf, and
What's the last name?
Knopf,
N-O?
N-A-U-F, I think E-Y is how it's
Okay,
spelled.
okay.
And he himself, I did a lot of research into it, really looked into Jewish lifestyle and Jewish belief.
He's not Jewish.
Not that I could find, although he did, I think he identifies, I wouldn't be surprised if he identifies under Reform Jewish ideas, but I think he studied various different dogmas and philosophies and was really brought to write this show.
Okay.
Mind you, I'm not the writer.
Is he from Hawaii?
No, he's
from New
I
York?
believe he I'm not sure where he's from. I think he's from New York. I think he's from New
So
York.
he had the benefit at least of being from the East Coast.
East Coast, yeah.
And observing and trying to put this in context.
Absolutely.
So when we come back, I want to know how it happened that you got to be the director and designer for this play, whether that was forced on you or whether it was voluntary, whether they had to, hold you down and whip you with wet noodles or something before you would do it, or whether you thought it up yourself, and if so, why?
Absolutely.
Okay? That's Joshua Ayu. He's a director and designer of a play called Next Fall. And we haven't really gotten into it yet. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But before I let my excitement carry me away, let's take a break.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on ThinkTech Hawaii. Center Stage airs every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and of course you can check out our archives on YouTube or on ThinkTech Hawaii anytime you like. Why should you do that? Because this is an arts show that I believe is making a difference in lives. We talk with artists of various ilk. We talk with painters and writers, playwrights, novelists, poets, sculptors, dancers, you name it, directors, actors, of course. And we don't only talk about what people do, but we talk about how they do it. And my favorite part of the conversation, we talk about why they do it. And it's really common on this show to hear people say, wow, I didn't think about it that way. And it's very common to hear people afterwards who have seen the show say the same thing. And I hear all the time that people are inspired by the conversations that we have. So why don't you join us and be inspired too? That's Center Stage on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. We'll see you center stage.
Hey, we're talking with Josh IU, director of Next Fall, coming up in early December. And we're talking also with Jay, and I'm co-hosting with Jay.
Okay.
And so, yeah, what were we talking about?
Well, we're talking about spelunking.
Spelunking, yeah.
Because we're going to, delve deep on this, and then we're going to reel it all back in and see what it really means. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I will ask you again about balancing ethics and beliefs.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you got involved in this, and it didn't come in dark coats to force you. So why?
Not that I remember.
Why
Or
did you?
white
Why did you?
coats.
White
get
coats.
involved?
Yeah.
White coats.
So going back to the reason why I decided to do the show, I was actually in Los Angeles when I first came across it, and I was at a conservatory, and part of our training was to go ahead and see productions, see off-Broadway shows. And I went to go see Next Fall, to which case I thought it was fabulous. I loved it.
How old is it?
It was first produced, I think, in May of 2010. So it's not very
not
old.
very old.
It's not very old at all.
Yeah.
And it was actually nominated for a Tony. It was really up there. And
Hasn't been on Broadway though.
I think it actually ran on
Off-Broadway.
off-Broadway for
Off-Broadway.
Off-Broadway.
Okay. Yeah.
It might have done a year or two on Broadway, depending, and ever since then, it was a timely show.
Yeah. What is the difference? Because we have people listen, they ask me in my ear, they ask me questions.
Go for it.
Off Broadway, on Broadway. What does that mean? If you're off Broadway,
About
you're
3
not
streets.
turned on, but
Oh,
if you're
no.
on Broadway, you're not turned off.
Yeah.
By off or on. How does that work?
So Broadway usually, in my understanding, refers to shows that actually take place on the mainstream theater, on the beaten track. Sometimes shows that have potential that they want to test the waters with will start off Broadway, that they'll build momentum, and as popularity thrusts them to a bigger stage, will find their way onto the mainstream production track.
Okay, so this has been up till now an off-Broadway show.
Yeah.
But it could be an on-Broadway show.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right, so you saw Next Fall,
I saw Next Fall.
and your reaction?
I loved it. I thought I saw so much potential. Like being Jewish myself, I noted some things that I think in the production that I saw had gone unnoticed. For instance, I think earlier we talked about a mezuzah on the wall in an apartment, and the fact that the show was set in a Jewish hospital. And so as a director, as somebody that looks at a show with hopefully open eyes, you begin to notice similarities and why the writer makes certain decisions. For instance, why not place the hospital in an Irish an Irish waiting room? Why are our characters certain ethnicities? Why do we have certain surroundings? So the fact that it was a Jewish hospital really caught my eye. And then you move into an apartment later. Our couple moves in, has a flashback, and they move into this apartment, and there's a mezuzah on the wall, which then makes you ask, why even mention a mezuzah? Who knows anything about a mezuzah? And what's even funnier is that the writer specifies that they're eating Chinese food. And you're like, why Chinese food? And it's like, well, they're moving in, and it's a very New York custom to go and grab Chinese when you're doing anything. But if you really take it even further, I feel that the writer was making a very conscious decision that in New York City, during the early part of the 20th century, a lot of Jewish people...
21st century.
21st century, during or the 1900s. So I don't know. That would be the 20th.
Oh, this
yeah,
was-
the 20th century.
This happened in the 1900s?
No, the show doesn't take place in the 1900s. But going back to the history
Okay.
of the story of why the decision was made.
Yeah.
In the 20th century, when Jewish people were first coming to America and coming to New York, they found themselves in a highly Christian, Puritan environment, in which case Christmas came along. And there were not, a lot of stores were closed. But there were two cultures that didn't celebrate Christmas. One was the Jewish culture, and the other were Chinese cultures. In which case, you will note that as you study Judaism in Orthodoxy and Reform, as Reform became less and less strict in keeping kosher, one of the obstacles that they had were going out and eating at Chinese restaurants because they were the only restaurants open on Christmas. They're like, well, let's go out and eat. And so you really begin to study this history, and the writer pulls from that history and says, no, we'll have Chinese food. Not only is it a cultural thing, but then we get into this idea of keeping kosher. So in the very same scene, we're dealing with the laws of homosexuality, the laws of keeping kosher, and putting mezuzah, and how this Christian man is identifying with one law, but not the others. And that's fine, but he's so torn up about it. He's so scared about salvation and whether or not he's going to heaven. It's like, and so you begin to wonder, well, where's the balance? Going back to ethics and beliefs. Yeah. You have this belief, but how can you tell somebody else, somebody that is, whether you believe in God or not, that where their salvation lies?
It's the melting pot of ideas.
Exactly.
And there's all kinds of great tension in that. I mean, it goes to Madame Butterfly, Miss Saigon,
Absolutely.
East and West. And in fact, what comes to mind is Abbey's Irish Rose, which was a very popular play on Broadway in the 20s.
I'm not familiar with this.
Oh, yeah. It was about Abbey, who was Jewish, and his Irish Rose is his girlfriend, who is Irish, and about their love affair and how neither of the parents and families agreed to it, and they had to, deal with all of that trouble.
And Irish are usually Catholic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So there's even more contrast. There's
a lot of resistance, but it's the melting pot of ideas, the melting pot of ethnicity. Absolutely. And it's always a good plot. It's always a great tension, and it usually works out well because in the world that we live in, that does happen increasingly, and the same issues are really present in the play you described. Absolutely. Okay, so this was very enticing to you.
Yes.
You saw it and you said, I want to direct this play. How did you make that happen?
So initially I started back in HPU last year, and started taking a theater performance, and decided to sign up for Fiddler on the Roof, at which time I was working on the technical aspects of theater. And one of my teacher, Janine, worked with me and said, okay, well, here's the basics. And we went through what it takes to put the theater together and working on the lights. And then next semester came along and was like, well, do you want to sign up for another class? And so I said, sure. And I did an independent study. And she said, okay, let's pick a show. And I had a couple of shows in mind. And I thought, well, why not do next fall? And she said, okay, so now the job is to design the show. And so I spent an entire semester designing the sets, what I wanted it to look like.
This is complex stuff.
Yes.
Had you ever designed a show before?
Not to this extent. Not to this. So it was as being at HPU really kind of helped me pull up my big boy pants and say, well, let's really look at the science aspect of this. Yeah. Where are we going to get these pieces? Your mind can do wonders when you let it loose and you piece things and ideas together.
Sachi has a question.
I do.
I know what the question is. We live in the 21st century now, and video is all the rage. Movies are all the rage. But instead of making a movie about this, instead of using the technology of video and all that comes with it, you decided you'd make a play about it. Absolutely. And you'd use the technology of plays. And the question that she wants to ask you, I know this, is why did you pick one over the other? Why didn't you just do a video? Isn't it easier?
Well, if I can speak for myself, I know different mediums kind of cater to different art forms too, right?
Yeah.
So, and you said you practiced already in theater, right?
Definitely,
So,
yes. I have a stronger background on stage. I have studied performing arts in the film aspect. But the show itself, I feel, requires that live tension. I think in performing arts, to break down arts philosophically, my personal belief, you look at what is, you're not looking at one actor. I think Uta Hagen, which was a great acting teacher, said that acting, like any other performing arts, is about hiding your technique. If you go to see or listen to a band or a musician, you want to see the if they're playing the violin, you want to see how their bow goes back and forth over the violin. Or if they're a dancer, you want to see how their technique is so defined. As an actor, if your technique is being seen, you're fundamentally failing. That's the challenge. You have to make it lifelike. You have to erase any form of that. So that I then translated into my philosophy of seeing that it's not about watching the actors. It's about the connection between the actors. It's about when you go to see somebody or watch a conversation, you're looking at the scene as a whole. If you're looking at one actor, you kind of miss half the story. And so because of that, I think it's very important that our show take place on stage, because it's about the connecting of these religious beliefs, these philosophical beliefs, the humanity of each person.
So you'd rather have it as a stage play?
I really would.
And you wouldn't want those close-ups of the characters? You wouldn't want to get all that close to them because you want to see them all interacting at the same time.
Absolutely.
Everybody on the stage is sort of part of the play.
Absolutely.
Even if they're not saying anything in a given moment.
And you see people's reactions. You'd be surprised what you notice. The tension that somebody can hold on stage when something's being discussed. There's one moment where Arlene, one of our characters, the mother, says, "Oh, I'm so glad they brought him to a Jewish hospital." And she's talking to one of the friends. And the father just goes off. He's like, "Will you be, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "Will you shush?" To the point where he says the line, "Christ on a Christmas tree." And he's just, and that's something that you really can't capture on film in the same way that you can on stage.
Right. Yeah, and on like a stage production is in time.
Yeah.
Like a movie or film, it's like cut, heavily edited usually.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want to see it as a stage play.
Yeah.
You know, I went to see not 2 weeks ago, just before the hard opening of Allegiance, which is playing on Broadway. This is a play, a musical about Heart Mountain, which is a detention camp, just like Manzanar, and I think it was in Wyoming. What's his name? George Takei plays the lead, and Leah Salonga is there with him. She's my heartthrob. And we got really good seats for this. And they were spitting at us. Now, I'm not saying they meant to, spit at us, but they were spitting at us.
You were right there.
The lights that were coming down, you could see the spittle as
the
they
wet
spoke
zone
their
marked.
I wish you could have seen that.
And it's a kind of tension and a kind of dramatic experience you like, because these people are actually turning themselves inside out for you. They're really letting go. It's a musical, which makes it all the more like that. But I remember the thrill of being right there, just a few feet away, because even though it's a musical, if you guys didn't know this, musicals on Broadway, they have an orchestra of maybe 5 or 6 people. They don't do big orchestras, it's all high tech. And they have these, complicated machines that make music.
Able to do
The musicians know how to operate the machines.
They're Broadway musicians.
Broadway,
they can do it all. And
they can all do it
100
all.
instruments, we have 4 people.
Right, exactly. Anyway, so there's not a lot of time in room in the orchestra pit, and you're very close. It's almost like theater in the round. You're very close to them.
Yeah.
And so there was a real excitement about that, and I know what you mean when you say that. But can we, we're going to take another break, but when we come back from this break, I would like to get into the thought process, which I think we understand a little already, about directing a play, especially a play you care about, and how you translate your interpretation of balancing, ethics and belief into what those actors do, and how much control you can and should have over what they do. This is getting pretty exciting.
Profound.
Okay, why don't you do the break again? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So this is Community Matters. We're talking with, where is this? Josh IU and Hazer. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Keith, and I'd like to invite you to come and watch my show every Wednesday at 3. I'm interested in a variety of issues that have to do with politics and our local business economy. And I'd like to bring on guests who like to talk about everything from technology to social media to what we can be doing to improve our environment. And so I'd like to invite you every Wednesday at 3 to stay and watch my show here with ThinkTech Hawaii. And I'll see you there.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on ThinkTech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
Bingo, we're back.
Bonsai!
And during the break, we were talking about how things are different behind stage than they used to be. Very efficient, very few people doing a lot of work and being paid well.
Yes.
You know, Broadway plays involve millions of dollars, and you either make it big or you lose it big.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge investment and a huge potential return. And if you ever get a chance to go see Allegiance, see it. It's a wonderful play. The audience gave it like a 10-minute standing ovation.
Wow.
And it's not because 400 of them came from Hawaii either.
Aloha.
Right?
Anyway, it was Lea Salonga, you know. So anyway, let's go to what it means to direct. You know, because I think in all of us, certainly around here in ThinkTech, there's there's an appreciation of directing people. You know, you have your theory, you have your your attention, you have the message. It's always a message about what you want to say, and you get a chance to try to express that through the actions, the words of others. What's it like? How do you do that?
It's a contradiction. It's easier than you'd think and more trying than you'd imagine, if that makes sense. Part of directing is being able to get out of your way and the actor's way, and getting the actors out of their own way. And so that way, whatever happens on stage can take place without the inhibition that we have in daily life. You know, on stage, we structure ourselves in a room that we say it's safe to do basically anything. You know, we give ourselves parameters, and we go for our objectives, and using an acting term, if you will.
Now, is it up to them to imagine how the audience is reacting, or is it up to the director to try to figure out how the audience will react?
There are different directing styles. I, for one, like being able to see an actor have the competence of knowing your lines and going for the moment and playing for the moment. But that goes back to my beliefs in acting styles, that the connection occurs between two people rather than what you solely are doing on stage, because of the fact that when you see the moment evolve in front of you, the audience then takes on that evolution. They grow as people. The Greeks referred to it as catharsis. As we, as the audience members, identify with what's going on stage, with the feelings of certain characters, which is why one of the things that I love about this show is that there's something that everyone can identify with, whether you are devout Christian, whether you are Jewish, whether you are atheist, across the board, you identify as a human being. Going back to a director's standpoint, my belief as a director is that you are sort of the senator of the city. You come to see the show and take on the responsibility of speaking for the audience and the community and saying, no, this is what we need to see. This is what we need to get out of it. And so in that sense, you set milestones that you want to, for the story, and you let the actors kind of drive the vehicle through.
How much freedom do you give them? Because I want you guys to understand this. I want you guys to integrate, all the messages, and then have at it. And I'll tell you if you're off, if you're off balance, if you're not on the right track to give the people what the people expect. But you guys take a whack at it. Is that the way you do it?
That is yes. Actually, that is one of the founding principles of my directing experience. I'd like to see the actors take it to places I could never imagine. Sometimes when you're in that moment and you're reacting off of somebody, from one night to another, and we were talking about film versus theater, when you're doing something, for a run, let's say of 4, 5, 6, nights, or 4, 5, 6 years, each night is going to be different. You may respond to something differently. The way somebody said something might make you feel upset rather than sad this time around. And you have to, the honesty in playing that emotion and the beauty of theater is that you're able to commit to that response and be able to say, no, what you said made me so angry instead of sad like last night. And I'm actually offended by what you said and I'm going to hold you to that. And it completely changes the storyline in the sense that there are many ways of responding to something. And you could come and see a show 5, 6, 7 times and you'll get a different experience each night, which I think is the beauty of theater. So I, as a director, like to imbue that into my shows. I like to give the actors that ability to play, to be in that moment while maintaining the objectives of the story.
Do you stand behind stage, sort of in the wings there, and say, no, move over there, or no, or you're too low, you're too loud, emote. You do that while the play is going on, or are you out of control? I mean, in other words, are you not involved? Do you sit in the back of the theater and let them do their thing because you don't have any control at that point?
For this show, I also am one of the actors.
Oh,
So
you're also
I am
an
also
actor.
an actor. So
See,
doing
here on ThinkTech, the truth comes out.
Yes.
We find out now in the last 5 minutes of the program, we find out.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, but yes, I am also an actor. So part of the time I am in the audience and I'm taking notes. I'm saying, well, my concern is, are they visible? Are they audible? Can we understand them?
You have microphones on this play?
No microphones. It's all
Means they really got to belt it
You
out.
really got to project. You always have to project. You really want to take that step.
As opposed to video,
where you can take this.
You can whisper and it's just fine.
Exactly. Even then, stage whispers. You have to. There's a balance. It's like, what do you mean a stage whisper? You have to be loud and soft at the same time. And so it's and my biggest thing is I like seeing people cross in front of furniture. And if you really want to get to specifics, these are some of my little.
You like to see them cross
I
in
like
front of
in front of furniture.
We're seeing the craft
Yes,
behind
there's
it,
a moment where, as an actor, everything should be played towards the audience because that's who you're connecting to.
barriers.
You don't want to bury. You don't want to be in back of the table. It's like, we didn't come to see the table. We came to see you. You can use the table, but be in front
Now
of
they
the
are
table.
going to be
No
facing
backs
the other
to the-
characters. though.
Yes.
I mean, you're not the kind of director who tells
Where it's
them,
completely to the audience.
when you got the big line, turn to the audience and let them have it. No, don't do that. Yes?
Where I feel there are some moments where you can cheat out and kind of use the fourth wall, not talk to the audience.
Fourth wall.
The fourth wall, another term where I don't see the camera right now. It's not there. No, there's that moment where you can play to that, and it creates contrast. Not playing to the audience, but playing away from your character. If I'm upset with you, and you're upstage of me, I can talk this way, and completely change the situation and the environment that we're in. And so I like to see that. I like to use many different techniques.
Oh, wow, you're really into it. So I know what Sashi wants to ask you next. Sashi wants to ask you, where does this take you in your life? Does this take you in terms of doing more shows, going to the mainland, and working big theaters, or maybe big off-Broadway theaters? Does it take you to writing, to be a playwright, to doing music for a musical? I mean, where's the boundary for you now? Where's the direction? I know she wants to. Am I right, Sachi?
Oh, you're so right, Jay. You're always right. Yeah, but going off of what he's saying, what's propelling you? Where are you being propelled?
Where do I see myself? Where am I going? I personally, my dream is to rebuild professional theater in Hawaii. And part of that means I feel eventually I'll have to go away again and slowly bring back components with me. But Hawaii actually has a long history of professional theater. If you study the history of theater in Hawaii, since the time of the overthrow or Western contact up until about the end of World War II, Hawaii across the islands at one point had over 400 theaters on the different islands, and it was such from operas to such a sense of culture, and
What happened?
well, there's a number of theories and a number of events. Film industry was popular back in 1940s, 50s, 60s, going up until the 70s, and then we had ecological concerns, we had environmental concerns. What is
Sounds
what's
like we
happening with-
dropped the ball.
We did. We kind of did. In which case, but it was a not necessarily dropping the ball, but it kind of got put to the side because of other concerns.
So you're
And
talking about bringing it back.
I'm talking about grabbing the ball
Are
and
you the
putting
only
it back
one,
in the
Joshua,
concern.
or are there other people like-minded in the community who want to do the same thing that you want to do?
I think that we have a lot of the potential, and I think given the option, if people, as people become more and more aware of our history and our abilities as a community, really jump on board and say, no, that this is possible. Look at all the shows that are coming back, the movies that are coming back. Jurassic Park was filmed here, Hawaii, the Hunger Games are being filmed here, Hawaii Five-0 is coming back. Slowly we're getting more and more productions to come to town. Jennifer Lawrence is the...
Another one of my heartthrobs.
Yes, she, they come to the islands. Hawaii is slowly opening itself back up, both in film. Hawaii is the only state. Our specialty is tourism. And yet, what doesn't make sense is that our nightlife, we have all of this wonderful, the beaches, and you can go out and during the day and go for hikes. But when you come back as a tourist and it's 7 o'clock at night, why don't we have Waikiki full of Broadway shows where people can really go out and put some money into our community and have actors and we have the talent, we have the ethnicities, we're the mixing pot of the world. If you need someone 5 foot that's Chinese that speaks Mandarin, we've got it. You've got like 18
Tell us
options.
how you really feel.
Right? There's that moment. So I think that there's such potential, and it's just, digging deep and tapping into it.
From your lips to God's ears.
Thank you.
The Jewish God.
Right?
Yeah. So I think it's really important that you carry on with this, and however much time you spend on the mainland, refining your skills,
Absolutely.
you have to bring it back. I think one thing we learned about in The Descendants, remember that movie, was that was one story. It was the Kama'aina white shoe story, and the valley was the subject of a trust, remember? It's a great Hawaii story. But there are thousands of stories like that.
Absolutely.
We have those stories.
Absolutely.
And there's so much material that you have at your command. You don't have to get somebody from the East Coast to write a play for you. You can write them right here, and you can have the best elements of the intellectual and racial and social melting pots happening right here, touch everybody's heart. And I can't wait. We're gonna have to close the show so you can walk out the door and start this right away.
Absolutely.
There is no time to waste.
We will not delay. We will. There's a Newsies production on Broadway that says "Seize the Day." I love that song. If anyone just has a moment, go and watch that.
You want to sing it now?
Seize the
Yay,
day. It is, but that is the motto. We have to, from this, stepping out that door, we will go ahead and do everything that we can.
Oh my God,
Sashi?
I'm so inspired already.
It's time for you to summarize the discussion and close the show.
Okay, well, to summarize, I think you should actually just watch the entire thing. But we've been talking with Josh Ayu and with our host, Jay Fidel, about,
Next fall.
Next fall.
Opening this December.
Oh my gosh. So please come and see it, and we'll see you later on ThinkTech. Thank you so much, Josh, for coming.
No problem. It was a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Josh. Thank you, Sashi.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.